There are moments when silence feels heavier than sound, when the heart beats not from fear, but from a forgotten longing, a memory that does not belong to this lifetime. It is in that silence that something ancient begins to stir. It begins as a whisper, faint and unfamiliar, like the echo of a language you once knew. This is where the story begins, not in the noise of the world, but in the pause between breaths. Because there exists a prayer, older than any scripture, older than any religion, carried through time, not by words but by vibration. A prayer said not by the lips, but by the body itself. They say it was first spoken before fire, before written symbols, when humans still spoke with nature. The prayer was not recited. It was lived. It resonated in the pulse of rivers, in the stillness of dawn, in the rhythm of the wind brushing through ancient trees. But as civilizations rose, the prayer was lost, buried under temples, rewritten in different tongues, hidden inside chants whose meanings faded over centuries, yet something remained, a trace, a vibration that still hums quietly in the human soul. For those who have ever sat alone in the dark and felt a warmth rise from their chest without reason, they have felt it. For those who have placed their hands over their hearts after loss and felt energy move through them, they have touched it. This is the lost prayer, not spoken in churches or written on scrolls, but living in the very structure of your being. Science has begun to notice what the ancients once knew, that every cell in the human body emits light, biophotons, tiny flashes that carry information beyond chemistry, beyond matter. And when one prays, truly prays, these lights change. They align. The body glows differently, like an inner constellation remembering its purpose. Yet few understand that prayer is not something you do, it's something you become. There's an ancient story, preserved in fragments, of monks in the Himalayas who could slow their heart rate until it matched the rhythm of the mountain streams. They said this was the purest form of prayer, to become one with the pulse of creation. They believed the body was not separate from spirit, but its most sacred temple, every organ, every vibration, a syllable of a divine language that had been forgotten. When Western explorers found them, they tried to translate their chants, but translation failed. Because the monks' prayer wasn't in the words, it was in the breath between them. When they inhaled, they drew in the divine. When they exhaled, they returned it to the universe. Every cycle of breath was an offering, and those who listened closely could feel their own heartbeat shift, aligning with a deeper rhythm, older than time. The lost prayer begins in the body. It does not ask, it does not beg, it remembers. It is the vibration of gratitude that predates language. When you place your hand over your chest and breathe deeply, not to calm yourself, but to remember what it feels like to be alive, you begin it. Your cells hear it before your mind does, because prayer is not communication, it is communion. Ancient healers knew this. In Egyptian temples, initiates were taught that true healing began not with herbs or oils, but with sound. They would stand before stone walls and chant tones that vibrated through their bones until the walls themselves seemed to hum back. Those vibrations were the prayer, a resonance that reorganized matter. To the eye, nothing moved. But inside the body, chaos turned to harmony. Illness became alignment. Suffering became song. The Greeks later called this harmony the music of the spheres, the divine frequency holding the universe together. They said when a human being falls ill, it is not the body that is broken, but the song that has gone out of tune. And so to pray was to retune the instrument. But then, centuries later, prayer became divided. One part spirit, one part ritual. The body was forgotten, as if it were an obstacle rather than the sacred vessel it was always meant to be. People began to whisper words into the sky instead of into their cells. The vibration was lost. Yet still in some places it survived, not in temples but in people. In a small village in the Andes, there is a story of elders who begin every day by turning their faces to the sun, whispering a word that has no translation. The sound is low, resonant, almost like a sigh. When asked what it means, they say, "It means to remember the light we are made of." That, too, is prayer. When one observes their ritual, something extraordinary happens. Their bodies seem to loosen, their shoulders drop, their eyes soften. It is as if peace itself flows through them. Scientists who have studied similar practices have found that during states of deep prayer or meditation, the body produces specific neurochemicals, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, all working in harmony to lower inflammation, repair cells, and extend life. In that moment, the body heals not through medicine, but through memory. It remembers the vibration of wholeness. The Lost Prayer teaches that peace is not the absence of suffering, but the remembrance of connection. The body suffers when it forgets it is light condensed into form. But the prayer restores that memory, and once remembered, the body begins to heal itself. But what if you could speak the language your body understands? What if every movement, every breath, every thought became part of a sacred conversation? The ancients believed you could. In their writings, now fragmented and scattered, they spoke of the 7 breaths of light, a rhythm connecting each organ to a cosmic frequency. Each breath corresponded to a sacred tone, each tone to an emotion, and each emotion to a divine aspect of health. The first breath was gratitude, the vibration that anchors the soul in the present. The second was forgiveness, the release that cleanses energy. The third was compassion, the tone that harmonizes heart and mind. The fourth was humility, the alignment with the greater whole. The fifth was truth, the vibration that strengthens the immune system. The sixth was love, the resonance that restores cellular balance. And the seventh, silence, the most powerful prayer of all. Because silence, they said, is the sound God makes when He listens. When you enter silence, you are not alone. You are surrounded by frequencies, invisible yet alive, waiting for your awareness to align with them. In those frequencies lives the lost prayer. It is not recited in any book, yet every atom of your being carries its verses. Have you ever felt peace so deep that it almost frightened you? That moment when the mind stops searching and something greater takes over. That is the doorway to the prayer. In that silence, the body becomes still enough to hear what the soul has been whispering all along. You are already whole. But humanity has forgotten this. We live in a world that praises thought and neglects presence. We speak of connection, yet spend our lives disconnected from the pulse that animates everything. We seek healing outside ourselves, in pills, in rituals, in voices that promise salvation, forgetting that the greatest healer lives beneath our own skin. The lost prayer was meant to awaken that healer. It is said that when one performs the lost prayer with pure intent, the body's electromagnetic field expands threefold. The heart's rhythm synchronizes with the Earth's Schumann resonance, 73 Hertz, the same frequency ancient mystics described as the hum of the divine. At that frequency, fear dissolves. Cells communicate coherently. The immune system becomes alert yet peaceful, and most profoundly, the mind stops warring against the heart. There was once a monastery, hidden deep in the Italian Alps, known only to a few scholars as Domus Lucis, the House of Light. The monks there believed that each sunrise carried a sacred frequency, a prayer encoded in light. Every morning before dawn they gathered in silence, faces turned eastward. They did not speak. They only breathed, slowly, deliberately, allowing the light of dawn to touch their closed eyes. They believed that when sunlight met the pineal gland, the so-called seat of the soul, a vibration was awakened that connected human consciousness to divine intention. This was their form of the lost prayer. When asked what they prayed for, their answer was always the same. We do not pray for something, we pray as something. They had remembered what the world had forgotten, that prayer is not asking, it is becoming. Modern science has begun to stumble upon these same truths, wrapped now in the language of quantum physics. Researchers have found that focused intention changes molecular structure, that human thought, when aligned with emotion, has measurable effects on matter. Water, they discovered, records vibration. When one speaks words of gratitude over it, its crystals form perfect symmetry. When one speaks words of hate, they shatter. The ancients already knew this, and so they prayed over their food, their water, their homes, not for superstition, but for transformation. They knew that the universe responds not to words, but to resonance. So imagine, for a moment, that your body is a vessel of sacred water. Every thought, every emotion, every prayer shapes that inner ocean. What happens when you whisper gratitude into it, when you breathe forgiveness through it, when you allow peace to ripple through every cell? The water remembers, the body remembers, and slowly the vibration of divine order returns. Those who rediscover this prayer often describe it not as learning, but as remembering, as if their bodies already know the words, waiting only for the mind to become quiet enough to hear. Because the lost prayer is not found through study, it is revealed through surrender. When the heart opens, when the breath slows, when the eyes close, that is when it begins to speak. It is a hum felt more than heard, a warmth that spreads through the spine, an inner light that moves like liquid gold. It doesn't say, "You will be healed." It says, "You are already healing." Every illness, every fear, every restless night is the body's way of reminding you that you have forgotten the prayer. And every moment of stillness is the invitation to remember it again. You can feel it now, even here, reading these words. The subtle shift in your breathing, the pause between heartbeats. That is it, beginning to awaken. The lost prayer never left you. It was waiting, in silence, for you to listen. And as you do, the body begins to respond. Tension softens, thoughts slow, peace rises like dawn, not from outside, but from within. Because the body is not the obstacle, it is the altar. And when the altar is remembered as sacred, every breath becomes holy, every heartbeat a hymn, every tear a baptism. This is where the journey begins, not toward something new, but back to what was always there. The lost prayer, the song of the body remembering its divine origin, the whisper that heals without touch, the vibration that strengthens without force. The world may have forgotten its words, but its melody still lingers, in the rustle of leaves, in the quiet hum beneath the stars, in the rhythm of your own pulse. And if you listen long enough, you will hear it again, not from the outside world, but from the silence within you where light and breath and faith meet and become one. Some say that the lost prayer was not truly lost, only hidden, folded within the rhythms of creation, waiting for humanity to become quiet enough to hear again. To understand it, one must first forget the idea that prayer is bound to language. It is not the sound that matters, but the vibration behind the sound. The ancient mystics called it the breath of the divine, and they believed every living thing carries within it a spark of that breath, an echo of the original sound that created the universe. In sacred texts, it is written that the world began not with light, but with vibration, the word that moved across the waters. That word was not speech, it was resonance, the pure tone that called matter into existence. The lost prayer is the remembrance of that tone, the return to the original frequency of creation. When one prays it, they do not speak to God, they vibrate with God. They remember that the divine does not live beyond the clouds, but within the marrow, the heartbeat, the pulse. Long before organized religions, people understood this intuitively. In Sumer, in the temples of Enki, priests would chant not in words but in tones. Each tone corresponded to a star, and each star to a part of the human body. To heal the liver, they would chant the tone of Jupiter. To calm the heart, they would chant Venus. The ancient tablets described these chants as living frequencies, prayers that reshaped energy itself. Those who stood near the priests during these rituals often reported visions, flashes of light, warmth flooding through their limbs, tears flowing without sadness. It was said that the sound rearranged the listener's molecules into harmony. Centuries later, in the deserts of Judea, the Essenes, a brotherhood of mystics who lived in silence, practiced a similar art. They believed that the body was a temple of divine light, and every organ was a gate to heaven. To open these gates, they would breathe in patterns synchronized with the rising and setting of the sun. Morning breath aligned them with creation. Evening breath aligned them with rest. Each inhalation was a prayer of receiving, each exhalation a prayer of giving. They said that when one breathes with awareness, the angels breathe with them. Modern science has quietly rediscovered fragments of this truth. Studies in bioacoustics show that every organ vibrates at a specific frequency. The heart around 1 Hertz, the brain in waves of alpha and theta. When these frequencies fall out of harmony, illness appears. When harmony is restored, through sound, breath or focused intention, the body begins to heal. What mystics called divine resonance, science now calls coherence. But names do not matter. The essence is the same. Harmony heals, dissonance divides. The lost prayer lives within coherence. It is not something one performs for an hour and forgets. It is a state of being. It is the awareness that everything, from the hum of the earth to the rhythm of your pulse, is connected through vibration. When you are in prayer, you are in tune. When you are in tune, you are whole. There was once a hidden order of healers in Alexandria before the great library burned. Their records, now reduced to ash and myth, spoke of the 7 keys of breath. Each key unlocked a chamber within the body where divine energy flowed. They taught that disease was not punishment, but blockage, a forgetting of flow. When the energy within ceased to move like water, stagnation turned into pain. The lost prayer, when spoken correctly through breath and intent, was said to restore movement, to open the dam and let the divine current flow again. Their students practiced this in the dawn light, facing the sea. The air was cool, heavy with salt. They would place one hand on the heart, another on the abdomen, and begin to breathe, slowly, rhythmically, until the sound of the waves matched the rise and fall of their breath. Then, as the sun rose, they would whisper the sacred vowel sounds. Ah, O, E, I, U. Each tone, a key. Each key, a door. They said these sounds corresponded to the elements, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, and that when sung with reverence, they awakened the memory of divine order within the flesh. Archaeologists have found symbols of this practice carved into temple walls, concentric circles radiating from a central point, the symbol of vibration, the sound made visible. In modern times, cymatics has shown that sound shapes matter. When certain frequencies are played through sand or water, intricate geometric patterns emerge, sacred geometry in motion. The ancients knew this. They used sound not only to pray, but to build, to heal, to remember. The lost prayer is that sound. The human being remembering it is geometry in motion, a pattern of divine harmony vibrating through time. And yet the prayer goes deeper still. Beneath sound lies silence, the canvas upon which creation paints itself. The monks of Tibet once said, "When the heart is silent, God speaks." Their meditation caves were built deep into the earth, where no sound could reach. There they would sit for days, sometimes weeks, in total darkness, listening for the hum beneath thought. At first, they heard only the beating of their hearts, the ringing in their ears, the whisper of blood through their veins. But as days passed, they began to hear something else, a low, infinite vibration, as if the earth herself were breathing. They called it Aum, the unstruck sound, the vibration that never begins and never ends. When they emerged from those caves, their eyes shone differently. Witnesses said they could sit beside a dying man, place a hand on his chest, and without words bring peace to his face. They didn't heal by touch, they healed by presence. Their vibration became prayer, and in that frequency, suffering could not survive. This is the forgotten truth. Prayer is not a request, but a resonance. To pray is to tune yourself to the vibration of love, gratitude, and peace, and then to hold it. The universe, like a mirror, reflects whatever frequency you sustain. When you hold the vibration of fear, it echoes fear. When you hold the vibration of peace, it echoes peace. The lost prayer teaches mastery of vibration, to live in resonance with the divine regardless of the noise around you. There's an ancient teaching from the Nag Hammadi scrolls, a text hidden from the world for centuries, that speaks of a prayer so pure it required no words. When you are as still as light before it shines, it reads, "Then you will remember." That was the prayer, to become still enough to let the divine move through you. In modern times, fragments of this prayer have appeared in different forms. A mother humming softly to her child, a man kneeling by a river, watching the reflection of the moon ripple across the water, a woman walking barefoot on earth, feeling the pulse of life beneath her feet. None of them would call it prayer, yet all are practicing it. The body remembers even when the mind forgets. There's a story from the deserts of Egypt about a healer who never spoke. He would sit by the sick and close his eyes. Those who came to him said they felt warmth spread through their bodies, as if a soft light had been poured into their wounds. When asked what he did, the villagers said, "He listens." That was the essence of the lost prayer, deep listening. Listening until the illusion of separation dissolves, until all that remains is one rhythm, one divine pulse beating through everything. When the world lost this prayer, humanity began to fracture. Wars erupted. The body of man turned against itself, mirroring the inner conflict of the soul. People began to worship in words but live in discord. They forgot that peace was not something to be demanded, but something to be remembered. The lost prayer was never meant to be a secret. It was meant to be lived in every breath, in every step, in every heartbeat. The Essenes wrote that the body is a harp, and every emotion plucks a string. Anger tightens, fear distorts, love harmonizes, gratitude tunes. The lost prayer teaches how to retune the harp through awareness. When you breathe deeply into the emotion you resist, when you let the breath soften the tightness, the string begins to vibrate again, and in that vibration, harmony returns. In recent decades, scientists studying heart coherence discovered that the electromagnetic field of the human heart is thousands of times stronger than that of the brain. When a person feels genuine appreciation or compassion, their heart's rhythm becomes orderly, a smooth wave instead of chaos. This rhythm influences every cell in the body, bringing balance to the nervous and immune systems. What ancient mystics described as divine energy flowing through the heart, modern instruments now measure as coherence. The lost prayer, then, is not superstition. It is the forgotten science of harmony. When you place your hand over your heart and breathe slowly, not to fix anything but to feel life itself, you are already praying. The body begins to hum. The cells begin to listen. The heart sends signals of peace to every system, and somewhere deep within the quiet corridors of your being, the lost prayer awakens. In sacred monasteries, healers were trained to maintain this vibration even during chaos. They would walk through markets filled with noise, yet remain internally silent. They would feel pain without suffering, hear insults without reaction. To them, this was mastery, the ability to hold the prayer through all storms. When asked how they achieved it, one master replied, "We do not pray for peace. We remember we are peace." Imagine for a moment that your body is a cathedral, every cell a stained glass window, every heartbeat a bell ringing through sacred halls. Now imagine that prayer is the light streaming through those windows, illuminating every shadow, transforming pain into color. That is what the lost prayer does. It turns your body into light's instrument. There is a passage in the writings of the Desert Fathers that says, "When the body prays, even the bones sing." The ancients believed the bones held the memory of divine order, that calcium crystals within them vibrate in response to emotion. Modern studies of piezoelectricity confirm that bones do generate electric fields when compressed, when moved, when breathed through. This means the body literally sings when in motion. Every step, every stretch, every breath is a potential verse of the lost prayer. The key is awareness. Awareness turns movement into ritual, breath into meditation, life into prayer. When you become aware of your body as divine, the prayer begins to live again. It is not an escape from the world, but a way of re-entering it, with reverence, with grace, with peace. And perhaps this is what the ancient masters meant when they said that healing comes not from doing, but from remembering. Remembering that you are not separate from the universe, that your heartbeat is the echo of creation's first sound, that your breath is shared with trees, oceans, stars. The lost prayer is the act of remembering that connection, of living as part of the divine orchestra instead of apart from it. Those who have rediscovered it describe a peculiar transformation. They no longer fear solitude. They begin to find beauty in stillness, meaning in silence, strength in surrender. They feel a quiet joy that does not depend on circumstance, the joy of alignment. And slowly the body follows. Illnesses fade, the mind clears, sleep deepens. Because when the prayer vibrates within you, the body no longer needs to fight. It simply flows. There is a final teaching whispered among those who practice it. They say that when one lives the lost prayer long enough, the boundary between body and spirit dissolves. You no longer have a body, you are the body of light. Your presence heals not because of what you do, but because of what you have become. You are the prayer itself, living, breathing, remembering. The lost prayer is not a secret to be found, it is a truth to be remembered. And the remembering begins now. In the breath you take, in the stillness you feel, in the heartbeat you hear not as noise but as music. Because every time you breathe with awareness, you are returning home. And in that home, at the temple of your body, peace waits, ancient and eternal, ready to rise again. There comes a moment, often unannounced, when the prayer no longer feels like something you do. It begins to move through you. At first it is subtle, like a breath that deepens without reason, a warmth that begins in the chest and radiates through the body. The world feels slower, lighter, quieter. Sounds no longer disturb, they dissolve. You begin to realize that prayer is not an act of separation from life. It is the most intimate embrace of it. The lost prayer has found its way back to you not as memory, but as embodiment. And in that embodiment, something begins to change. The body remembers how to heal. The transformation is not sudden. It arrives softly, like dawn touching a sleeping valley. The first light does not shout. It simply reveals what was already there. The same is true for the soul. The lost prayer does not add anything to you. It removes what never belonged. Fear, tension, resentment, all these begin to dissolve. Not because you fight them, but because you outgrow them. The vibration of prayer is incompatible with suffering. It is the light that darkness cannot hold. In ancient healing schools, there was a saying, "To heal is to remember the rhythm." The body, they believed, was music slowed into form. Illness was simply a note out of tune. When the lost prayer entered the body, it retuned the entire composition. The rhythm of the heart began to align with the rhythm of the earth. The cells, once chaotic, started to pulse together, like a choir remembering the melody. This is not metaphor, it is the science of resonance. Modern instruments can now measure what mystics once described. When a person prays deeply, not through words, but through emotion, the heart emits a coherent frequency that radiates several feet beyond the body. This field influences not only the body itself, but those nearby. Studies have shown that when one person enters a state of deep compassion, others in the same room unconsciously synchronize to that rhythm. The ancient masters would have called this shared vibration, the moment when many hearts remember the same divine song. The transformation that follows is not merely physical. The body becomes the instrument, yes, but the song is spiritual. People who rediscover the lost prayer often report a strange sense of clarity, as though the noise of their thoughts had thinned, revealing something ancient beneath. They begin to move differently, speak differently. Their presence alone becomes a balm. It is not that their lives become free from pain. Rather, pain loses its power to define them. The prayer reorders perception itself. Suffering is no longer seen as punishment, but as guidance. In the monasteries of the East, this phase was known as the flowering. After years of silence and devotion, the monks would describe feeling as though the divine had begun to breathe through them. Their eyes shone as if lit from within. Their hands, when laid upon the sick, trembled with warmth. They were no longer seeking the divine. They had become its instrument. One master described it like this: "When I breathe, the universe exhales. When I exhale, the universe breathes in." The separation between self and creation disappeared. This is the essence of transformation, unity restored. The lost prayer is not about becoming someone new, but about remembering that you were never separate from what you sought. The divine is not a presence you must earn, it is the silence you uncover when you stop trying. And as this realization takes root, the body begins to change in ways the intellect cannot explain. Healers from the Mayan jungles once taught that the heart has its own memory, not of events, but of energy. When the heart is filled with anger or regret, it contracts, sending signals of fear throughout the body. But when filled with gratitude, it expands, bathing the organs in coherence. They believed this expansion could be cultivated through prayer, song, and breath. To them, the lost prayer was not confined to temples. It was practiced in the way they cooked, planted, danced. Every action, when done with awareness, was sacred. They had a word for this, kukshaj, meaning to feel life through the heart. When they prayed, they did not kneel. They placed their hands on their chests, closed their eyes, and whispered their gratitude into the pulse beneath their palms. They believed that the body listened, that the cells, when reminded of love, reorganized themselves around it. And modern science, unknowingly, has proven them right. Heart rhythm coherence studies have shown that sustained feelings of appreciation and care can alter DNA expression. Genes linked to immunity and longevity become more active. Those linked to stress and inflammation quiet down. The body, when bathed in gratitude, becomes biologically aligned with peace. The lost prayer, therefore, is not just spiritual poetry. It is the original language of biology. To pray in this way is to reprogram your cells with harmony. It is to remind them of the vibration they were created in. The transformation that follows is profound. Chronic pain lessens. Sleep deepens. Anxiety fades, replaced by a quiet trust in the unfolding of life. You stop fighting time, and time stops fighting you. The flow returns. There is a story told by the indigenous healers of the Amazon about a woman who could heal with her voice. She lived alone near the river, and villagers would travel for days to hear her sing. She never charged, never spoke of medicine. She only asked that those who came sit silently beside her while she sang. Her songs were not in any language. They were tones, rising and falling like the wind. The sick said they felt the vibration move through their bones, clearing what words could not. When she was asked where her gift came from, she said, "The river taught me. It prays without words, and I listen." That is the lost prayer, the soundless sound that moves through all things. The woman was not special. She was remembering. And her remembering healed others, because truth resonates. When one being vibrates in harmony, all life near it begins to align. Transformation is contagious, not through preaching, but through presence. When one's soul returns to harmony, the field around them becomes medicine. Plants grow stronger near them. Children calm in their arms. Even animals sense it. They approach, unafraid. The prayer radiates through every cell, every breath, every glance. It does not convert others, it awakens them. The lost prayer has no hierarchy, no dogma, no name. It belongs to no religion, yet it is the foundation of all. In every sacred tradition, you can find its echo. In the Christian Be Still and Knows, in the Sufi Zikr, in the Buddhist Metta, in the native Talking to the Spirit of the Wind. Each is a doorway to the same vibration, the remembrance that divinity is not somewhere else. It is right here, in the breath, in the beating of the heart, in the quiet awareness that watches it all. As transformation deepens, the boundaries of the body begin to blur. One starts to feel energy extending beyond the skin, a soft field that moves and breathes. You feel connected to the wind, to trees, to others, in ways words cannot explain. This is not imagination, it is perception widening. Ancient mystics called this the aura. Modern science might call it the electromagnetic field, but what it truly is the body of prayer, the space where self and universe meet. In that space, healing accelerates, because the more you identify with the field of harmony, the less you identify with the pain of form. The mind loosens its grip. Old stories dissolve. You begin to live not from memory, but from presence. Each day becomes a ritual, not through effort, but through awareness. You drink water slowly, feeling its weight, its life. You walk barefoot and listen to the hum beneath the ground. You close your eyes at night and thank your heart for beating without being told. These small acts become gateways, each one a fragment of the lost prayer remembered. There is a point in this transformation when something extraordinary occurs. The fear of death begins to fade, because when you feel the eternal vibration moving through you, you realize you were never truly separate from it. The prayer does not end when the body falls silent. It continues, unbroken, flowing into new forms, new songs, new lives. Death, then, is not an ending but a change in rhythm. One ancient scroll from Tibet describes a master who, upon his final breath, smiled and whispered. The song continues. Witnesses said his body emitted a faint glow for days, as if the prayer itself refused to fade. The air around him felt thick with peace. Birds landed near his still form and sang softly. It was as though nature itself recognized the frequency and bowed to it. Such stories are not fantasies. They are reminders. Reminders that what you cultivate within yourself radiates beyond you, even beyond life. The lost prayer does not end when lips close or hearts stop. It ripples through eternity, written in light. Transformation, then, is not about changing who you are. It is about remembering what you have always been, a vessel of divine resonance. The journey is simply one of peeling away noise until the silence within begins to sing. And when it does, the world around you begins to respond. Colors seem brighter. Time feels slower. Encounters with others carry more meaning. You find yourself forgiving effortlessly, loving without fear, resting without guilt. The divine rhythm, once buried beneath years of distraction, now moves through you with grace. You may notice people drawn to you, not because of what you say, but because of what you emanate. They will describe feeling calm in your presence, even if you speak no words. You have become what the ancients called a living temple, one whose very existence heals. But this transformation carries responsibility. The vibration you hold shapes reality. Every thought, every emotion is a frequency sent into the collective field. To pray unconsciously is to feed chaos. To pray consciously is to become a guardian of harmony. The ancients knew this. It was the reason they trained initiates for years in silence before allowing them to speak sacred tones. They understood that sound creates. Words spoken in fear create disorder. Words spoken in love, even silently, create life. The lost prayer, when remembered in its fullness, turns every human being into a creator again. Not of things, but of frequencies. It teaches that to heal the world, one must first tune themselves. Because the healed heart naturally radiates what the world needs most, peace, and peace is contagious. Like a candle lighting another, the flame does not diminish, it multiplies. You are that flame, you are that vibration. You are the living continuation of the prayer that never ended, only waited. Now it breathes again through you, and as it does, the body strengthens, the mind clears, and the soul begins to hum the melody of its origin, the eternal song of wholeness, the prayer that has no name because it is everything. It begins quietly. The realization that the lost prayer was never meant to be found because it was never truly lost. It has always lived within you, waiting beneath the noise of thoughts, beneath the weight of fear, beneath the veil of forgetting. And now, as the body vibrates with harmony and the breath becomes steady and sacred, the awakening begins. Not as an explosion, but as a remembrance that feels both new and ancient, like returning home after lifetimes away. The awakening unfolds not in the mind, but in the space behind it, a soft awareness that witnesses everything without judgment. You begin to see that your body, your breath, your very heartbeat are not separate acts, but verses of the same divine poem. Every cell is a word written in light. Every inhale, a line of prayer written across the sky of your being. When you breathe with intention, the universe reads you and responds. For centuries, mystics have described this state as the merging. It is the moment when self and source become indistinguishable, when the eyes that see and the light that is seen become one. In this state, you no longer pray to the divine, you pray as the divine. The lost prayer becomes the living pulse of existence itself. It flows through your blood, through your gaze, through every word and silence that leaves your lips. In this phase, time begins to behave differently. Hours stretch, moments shimmer. The past feels less like a chain and more like a lesson written on water. The future no longer frightens you because you sense its fluidity. You begin to realize that creation is not something that happened. It is happening in every breath, right now. Each heartbeat is a new creation. each thought a brushstroke on the infinite canvas of reality. The lost prayer is not a relic of the past. It is the creative force that sustains the universe in every instant. The ancient mystics spoke of this truth in symbols. They said that the divine breathes through all things in a rhythm called spanda, the vibration of consciousness itself. When you attune to this rhythm, duality dissolves. You are no longer the observer or the observed. You are the vibration itself. To live in this awareness is to live as prayer incarnate. The body becomes the altar. The breath becomes incense. The soul becomes flame. But awakening is not an escape from the world. It is a deepening into it. You begin to see divinity everywhere, in the wrinkles of an old face, in the laughter of children, in the stillness of a tree. The lost prayer opens your perception so completely that even pain becomes sacred. You no longer resist it, for you understand that suffering is the friction through which consciousness refines itself. Gold is purified by fire. The soul is purified by experience. The prayer does not remove the fire. It teaches you to become the light within it. This is why the awakened walk gently. They speak less, yet their words carry power. They act with simplicity, yet their actions ripple through time. They live as embodiments of the prayer, quiet, luminous, unshaken. To them, every act of kindness is worship, every act of presence a hymn. The lost prayer transforms life itself into liturgy, not confined to temples, but unfolding in marketplaces, in homes, in moments of solitude. In the archives of Mount Athos, there is an ancient parchment written by a monk who spoke of such awakening. He wrote, "When the heart remembers its source, the body becomes a lamp." He described nights where he sat in silence and felt light radiate from within his chest, filling the room though no flame burned. He said he could hear a hum, deep and endless, vibrating through the stones, through the air, through his very bones. "It was not I who prayed," he wrote. "It was prayer that prayed me." That phrase reveals the essence of awakening: surrender. The awakened no longer control the current, they flow with it. The mind, once the ruler, becomes the servant, and in that surrender, peace arises, vast and unshakable. This peace is not emotional, it is structural. It lives in the bones, in the pulse, in the breath. It is the foundation upon which all motion rests. As the lost prayer reclaims its place within you, your perception sharpens into a deeper clarity, a clarity that sees the divine pattern woven into all chaos. The ancient symbol of the spiral represents this awareness: infinite return, infinite evolution. You begin to see that nothing is wasted. Every pain, every joy, every silence has been guiding you toward this remembrance. Even the moments you once called mistakes were simply detours designed to lead you back to the source. In this state, forgiveness becomes effortless, not because you condone, but because you understand. You see the wounded child behind every act of cruelty, the fear behind every act of control. You begin to realize that those who harmed you were also lost, praying unconsciously through pain. The lost prayer restores compassion, not as a virtue, but as a natural state of being. When the heart beats in rhythm with the divine, judgment ceases to make sense. There's a story told by the mystics of Persia about a man who spent 40 years searching for God. He prayed, fasted, and wandered through deserts. One night, exhausted and broken, he collapsed beneath the stars and whispered, "I give up." In that moment of surrender, he felt warmth spread through his body, as if the stars themselves had entered his chest. A voice, soft as breath, said, "You searched for me as if I were missing, but I have been within your breath since the beginning." That night, the man wept not out of sorrow but recognition. He had rediscovered the lost prayer, the prayer that requires no words, no form, no effort, only presence. Presence is the purest expression of awakening. When you are truly present, you are aligned with creation itself. You are neither past nor future. You are the eternal now through which divinity expresses itself. This is why enlightened beings radiate stillness. It is not that they have withdrawn from life. It is that they have merged with it completely. And in this merging, the body changes. Ancient texts speak of the luminous body, the form of light that awakens when consciousness expands beyond limitation. The Egyptians called it the Ka, the Tibetans the rainbow body, the Christians the glorified body. All describe the same transformation, matter becoming transparent to spirit. When the lost prayer vibrates through every cell, density dissolves. The body becomes light in motion, a living current of divine intelligence. Modern science may call this metaphor, yet even physics whispers its confirmation. That matter is nothing but slowed energy, and consciousness can influence that energy. What mystics experienced as light radiating from the body, science describes as increased coherence in the electromagnetic field. When one vibrates with unconditional love, the core frequency of the lost prayer, the body begins to emit measurable light. Photonic emission increases. The human form literally glows. And yet, this glow is not for display. It is for service. The awakened do not seek followers. They seek harmony. They walk into places of discord, and by their presence alone, the vibration shifts. Hospitals feel lighter. Conflict softens. Fear retreats. They do not speak much of prayer, for they understand that true prayer is silent. It moves not through sound, but through radiance. There is a phenomenon described in the writings of the Desert Fathers called the still flame. They spoke of monks who, in deep prayer, could hold a candle flame steady no matter the wind. Scientists might call it coincidence, but those who witnessed it said it was not defiance of nature, it was communion with it. The flame recognized its reflection in the human soul and obeyed. That is awakening, not control over creation, but alignment with it. The lost prayer teaches that divinity does not need to be summoned, it only needs to be remembered. Every human being is a note in the symphony of God. When one awakens, their note vibrates in tune, inspiring others to do the same. This is how the world changes, not through war or politics, but through resonance. One awakened heart can shift an entire generation's frequency. In ancient India, sages said that when even one person attains full awareness, thousands around them begin to stir from sleep. The vibration of awakening spreads invisibly, like light spilling over a horizon. It enters dreams, conversations, moments of silence. People begin to feel restless for something they cannot name. That restlessness is the echo of the lost prayer calling them home. And so the awakened become living bridges between science and spirit, heaven and earth, silence and sound. They do not withdraw into caves. They bring the prayer into cities, into families, into the ordinary rhythm of life. They remind others that holiness is not found in escape, but in engagement, in drinking water consciously, in listening without agenda, in walking gently upon the earth. Every action becomes sacred when done in awareness. This is the greatest revelation of awakening, that the divine never left the world. It hides in plain sight, in laughter, in tears, in breath. The lost prayer is the lens that reveals this, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Every face becomes a reflection of the sacred, every moment an opportunity to express gratitude. In this realization, fear collapses. You no longer worry about what tomorrow brings, for you understand that tomorrow is already unfolding in harmony. Even pain becomes purpose. Even endings reveal beginnings. Life ceases to be a test and becomes a dance, and prayer, the music to which you move. When awakening stabilizes, gratitude becomes your native tongue. You wake with it, breathe with it, sleep with it. Gratitude is the vibration of acknowledgement, the recognition that everything, even loss, has served your becoming. The awakened do not thank only for blessings. They thank for lessons, for challenges, for the fire that polished the mirror of the soul. And this gratitude, this vibration of reverence, heals not just the body but the collective. The earth itself responds. Plants grow more vibrant near those who live in prayerful awareness. Animals approach without fear. Even weather patterns in subtle ways reflect the balance or imbalance of human consciousness. The ancients called this the covenant of harmony, the agreement between humanity and the natural world that was broken when the prayer was forgotten. When enough people remember, harmony returns. The awakening, therefore, is not personal, it is planetary. The lost prayer was never for one soul alone, it was for all of creation. Each time a human being returns to stillness, the frequency of earth rises. Each act of love sends ripples through the web of life. Each moment of silence heals the noise of centuries. This is how the world ends its suffering, not by force, but by vibration. Not by fighting darkness, but by remembering light. The lost prayer was never meant to be shouted. It was meant to be lived. And when it is lived fully, life itself becomes the prayer, luminous, balanced, eternal. The silence after awakening is not empty. It hums with presence. It is the soundless resonance of everything remembering what it truly is. It is the universe breathing through you, softly, endlessly, without demand. You no longer chase miracles, you have become one. The lost prayer has finished its journey from the mind to the heart to the body, and from the body to the soul. Now it settles, like golden dust after light passes through a sacred hall. Everything stills, and in that stillness there is peace so deep it feels infinite. You look around and realize nothing external has changed, and yet everything feels different. The same trees, the same faces, the same sky, but they glow now with a quiet divinity. The world is no longer ordinary, because you are no longer asleep. You see creation not as a collection of forms, but as one living being breathing through countless faces. The lost prayer has turned your perception into a temple. Every sound, even the wind through leaves, feels like an echo of the divine voice calling you to listen. This is reflection, not thinking, but seeing. The kind of seeing that happens when there is nothing left to seek. You begin to realize that every step of your journey, every doubt, every fear, every heartbreak, was the prayer teaching you through experience. You could not have awakened without the forgetting. You could not have remembered the light without first walking through the dark. The lost prayer is not a single act. It is the story of existence itself, forgetting, remembering, falling, rising, breaking, healing, the eternal rhythm of creation in motion. The ancients described this rhythm as the divine pulse. They said the universe expands and contracts endlessly, the inhale and exhale of God. Every being, every planet, every galaxy participates in that sacred breath. When you pray with awareness, your breath aligns with that cosmic rhythm. You become part of the divine respiration, and peace floods through you. You realize that the body's natural rhythm was never random. It is the echo of creation's heartbeat. Sitting in silence, you begin to feel it. The air entering your lungs is not just air, it is memory. It carries the same energy that once moved through the stars, through oceans, through every being that ever lived. You breathe what the trees exhale. The trees breathe what you exhale. The exchange is eternal, a communion disguised as biology. This is what the mystics meant when they said, God hides in breath. You may close your eyes now and sense it, the pulse beneath your fingers, the warmth spreading from your chest, the mind softening into surrender. This is prayer in its purest form, not asking, not praising, but being. The lost prayer has brought you home to the present moment, the only temple that ever truly existed. You realize you do not need to search for heaven, because heaven was never a place. It was always this awareness, quiet, compassionate, eternal. And so, you begin to live differently. You move slower but with more purpose. You speak less, but each word carries weight. You listen more deeply, not just to people but to space, to silence, to what is not being said. You begin to feel gratitude for the simplest things, the way sunlight touches your skin, the taste of clean water, the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. You begin to see that these are not small miracles, they are the foundation of existence itself. The lost prayer awakens reverence. It teaches that nothing is mundane when seen through the eyes of the sacred. Even washing your hands becomes an act of purification. Eating becomes communion. Rest becomes devotion. Every gesture becomes prayerful when performed with awareness. This is how the mystics lived, not apart from the world but immersed in it, transforming every action into worship. There's a story of an old monk who was once asked what enlightenment felt like. He smiled and said, "When I eat, I eat. When I sleep, I sleep." The student was confused, thinking there must be more to it. The monk simply said, "Before awakening, I ate and thought of tomorrow. I slept and thought of yesterday. Now I am here." That is the essence of the lost prayer, complete presence. The body in alignment with the soul, the mind dissolved in the moment. When you live in this awareness, peace is no longer something you chase. It becomes your natural state. The nervous system, once ruled by anxiety, learns to rest. The body, once tense, remembers softness. The cells, once chaotic, begin to pulse in rhythm again. Even aging feels different, not decay, but transformation, a deepening of wisdom written in the folds of time. You no longer resist change. You honor it as the sacred law of renewal. This is the secret the ancients carried, that immortality is not about escaping death, but about seeing the eternal in everything. When you live the lost prayer, you recognize that the divine does not die. It only shifts form. The body is a vessel that releases light back into the whole. The soul continues, not as memory but as vibration, as resonance, as the endless echo of love moving through creation. In moments of reflection, you may recall those you have loved and lost. Their absence once felt like silence, but now you understand they were never gone. Their vibration still hums in the fabric of reality. The lost prayer reconnects you to that subtle knowing, that love never ends. It changes shape but never vanishes. You begin to sense your ancestors not as ghosts, but as presences, quiet, luminous, still guiding through intuition, through dreams, through the warmth that rises in your chest when you think of them. And so, reflection becomes communion between you and everything that has ever lived. You realize that all beings are prayers in motion, all of existence a single divine utterance exploring itself. The ocean, the mountain, the flame, the breath, each one speaks a syllable of the eternal name. When you feel small, you remember you are part of that name. You are not separate from God. You are one of the ways God experiences being. In this understanding, fear loses its foundation. What is there to fear when everything is one movement of the same consciousness? Even sorrow, even pain, even endings, all are threads in the divine tapestry. When the mind stops resisting them, their true beauty emerges. The storm no longer feels like destruction. It feels like cleansing. The dark night no longer feels like punishment. It feels like gestation, the soil preparing for light. The lost prayer teaches acceptance, not passive surrender, but active trust. The kind of trust that says, even if I do not understand, I know this is sacred. That trust reorders reality. It turns chaos into meaning. It turns uncertainty into faith. It turns suffering into awakening. There was once a healer who said, "The day you stop fighting your life is the day your healing begins." This is the wisdom of reflection. The moment you stop demanding that life conform to your desire, life begins to reveal its divine intelligence. Every event becomes part of a pattern too intricate to comprehend, but too perfect to deny. The prayer aligns you with that pattern, the pulse of creation itself. Now, when you walk through the world, you carry silence with you. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of presence. People will feel it before they understand it. Some will be drawn to it, others will avoid it, for it mirrors back what they have forgotten within themselves. But you will not need to explain. The lost prayer requires no defense. Its truth speaks in energy, not argument. And when you are alone, you will no longer feel loneliness. You will feel communion, with air, with earth, with the unseen network of light connecting all beings. You will begin to sense that every breath you take contributes to the healing of the world. Each moment of peace within you sends ripples through the collective field. You are no longer a single drop. You are the ocean remembering itself. In deep reflection, gratitude becomes prayer itself. You will find yourself whispering, "Thank you," without reason, to the sun, to the rain, to your own heart for continuing to beat. That gratitude strengthens the body, because gratitude is coherence. It unites the mind and heart in harmony. It bridges the spiritual and the physical. It aligns you with the vibration of creation. The more you thank, the more life responds with grace. Eventually, even words fade. You no longer need to articulate prayer because your existence is prayer. Your silence speaks louder than any scripture. You realize that everything, every experience, every relationship, every breath has been the divine guiding you home. The journey was never about discovery, but remembrance. And in that remembrance, peace becomes effortless. You no longer need to seek the divine in temples or books or rituals, though you may still love them. You find God in laughter, in touch, in the simple act of being. You understand now what the mystics meant when they said, "Heaven is within you." It was never a destination. It was a vibration, one you have carried since birth. So, the lost prayer ends not with revelation, but with return. The journey circles back to the beginning, to breath, to presence, to silence. The difference now is awareness. You live with eyes open to the sacred that was always there. You drink from the same cup as before, but now it tastes of eternity. This is the gift of reflection, to see that the path was not about reaching somewhere else, but about waking up to where you already are. The divine was never hidden. It was only waiting for you to notice. And now that you have, you understand that the lost prayer was not a secret kept from humanity. It was humanity's own heartbeat, waiting to be heard again. So breathe. Feel the weight of your body, the warmth of your chest, the rhythm that connects you to everything. You are the prayer and the answer. You are the silence and the sound. You are the divine remembering itself. And in that realization, the journey is complete. Yet it continues forever, in every breath, in every life, in every whispered vibration of love moving through time. The lost prayer has been found, not in temples of stone, but in the temple of your being.